Welcome to the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize podcast. I'm Billy Weiss, compounding pharmacist and health and wellness expert. This morning, we have a very special guest, Lydia, who's been on before, is going to be taking Janet's spot and co-hosting today. And Mike behind the scenes as always. Good morning.
Good morning, Billy. Good morning, Mike.
Yep. Good morning, everybody out there.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Osteoporosis.
Okay.
What is it?
Well, there's two kind of parts to that. Osteopenia, they consider kind of the beginning of the bone loss. And then osteoporosis would be the more advanced state of that.
So does one progress into the other?
Yeah, so we would normally see osteopenia if we're testing first.
Right.
And then we would see full-blown osteoporosis.
Okay.
And that depends on the amount of bone loss that they see.
How do they see it?
Typically, they're going to measure the bone density, which I think is the wrong test, which is, I think, maybe why you asked that question. I'm assuming that's where you were going.
I am.
So typically, they look, Lydia, at the size of the bone. The bone density just means that they're looking at the size of the bone. And while the size of the bone may be important, it's not nearly as important as the strength of the bone. So they're typically looking at bone density, which is strictly how big is the bone in the femur, the bone in the neck, whatever, the hip. So versus bone mineral density, which is how strong is the bone. So I like to use the analogy of a pine tree versus a big oak tree, but the oak tree's dead. The density of that tree is still really big, right?
Right.
That oak tree is still so big I can't reach all the way around it with my arms and touch my hands. But the pine tree is small and I can easily grasp it. So the oak tree doesn't have leaves in June. And so that oak tree's dead and fragile, right? But it's still big. It's still dense.
Right.
The pine tree, however, is got its green pine needles, and it is, the wind blows and branches are falling off the oak tree. The wind blows and the pine tree just kind of bends and pops right back. So we really want our bones to be stronger rather than just bigger. And there is a test for that called bone mineral density.
Right.
So what we'd like to measure more than bone density is bone mineral density. And I think what you'll find, Lydia, and why the answer is bone density test, is I think the drug companies have formulated it that way. And it was a plan all along to do that. And we can talk about, if you want, why that's the case.
I do. Now, we talk a lot about different ailments, different illnesses people come up with. Is this one genetic?
No, this is not genetic. However, women, the statistics show that 1 in 2 women over the age of 50 will break a bone due to osteoporosis in their lifetime, and 1 in 4 men. Now, the reason for that is that after about the age of, your bone's density peaks at about 30, okay? So we're building bone as we get older, as we grow, and in our 20s, we're certainly building bone. But in about 30 is when the bone mass peaks. And after that, we start to see a drop-off. But for women, after menopause, we see a significant drop-off. And that's why the 1 in 2 women over 50 versus the 1 in 4 men, because the hormones that we talk about all the time that women should probably consider replacing, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, all play a huge role in the bones. And those levels drop significantly in women, after the age of, I don't know, we'll call it 40 today. Used to be 50. Now we'll call it 40.
My first scan was in my mid-50s, and it was osteopenia at the time. And now it has progressed to osteoporosis.
Right.
And so talking with my provider, this was several years ago.
Yeah.
She suggested that I go with a reclassed product.
Yeah.
I did some research, and there is osteoblast that happens in the bone and osteoclast.
Correct.
So a little word play on that.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit about the osteoblast and the osteoclast.
Yeah. So what happens is, I think the easiest way to explain it, Lydia, is we have those 2 cells that you just named, and I don't know how they got named osteoclast and osteoblast. I don't know. But whoever did that, they can distinguish them. One of those cells I think of as Pac-Man, the game from the 80s, Pac-Man, that goes around and eats old bone, okay? And then the other cell comes in and rebuilds that bone. So just think of one of those we have those two types of cells that are kind of involved in this bone thing. So one is to eat old brittle bone, and the other is to come in and repair it. So we got Pac-Man and we got the remodeler.
Right.
Okay. So what happens is, the reason that I think that the drug companies want bone density measured is their drugs like Reclast, Fosamax, Actonel, there's others today.
Right.
But they will, Beniva is the other big one that used to have a bunch of TV commercials. They will have, they will kill Pac-Man. So they will increase the bone density.
Right.
The problem is they increase the bone density at the cost of leaving the old bone there. So they kill Pac-Man, but they don't kill the rebuilder. So the remodeler. So what happens is now you're building new bone on top of old bone. And I think something that people may need to know is that we build and replace our skeleton about every 7 years. So all our bones are replaced about every 7 years. So the remodeler is working. The problem is if he's building on top of old bone that's brittle, it leads, and it shows in their own studies, it leads to more hip fractures. It leads to osteonecrosis of the jaw,
Right.
which is where the jawbone just kind of melts away. So, Lydia, the fact that you were able to look and do your research and avoid using a drug like Reclast is...
I did once.
Oh, okay. But you didn't continue.
I did not continue.
Because what we find is actually more fractures, which I find ironic that they tell me that there's more fractures, but it's good for my bones. And one of the side effects is osteonecrosis, which is the jawbone goes away.
And there's several dentists that will not treat older women because they will ask you, have you had any diagnosis or any treatment?
I know two dentists very well who said that they will not even clean the teeth of a woman who's been on one of those drugs because they've literally had teeth just fall out. And they will send them to an endodontist, so a specialist, even for a cleaning, because they're not able to confidently do it without afraid they're going to lose tooth while they're doing it.
So it's a little misleading that you're taking this medication to strengthen your bones, to make it all better.
Yeah.
But then they tell you, don't be alarmed if you have a hip fracture. Don't be alarmed if you have a femur. Now, your femur bone's pretty important.
Yeah.
And it's pretty big.
Yes.
Well,
that's one of the side effects of the drug is more femur fractures.
Well, I did it one time before my research, and it was like I had the flu for a month. Headaches, nausea, joint pain, just terrible symptoms. And I'm like, if this is helping me, then it's certainly not doing a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
because of that.
It's not only littered with the side effects, Lydia, that you name, but it's littered with the fact that I don't think that it makes your bones stronger. It makes them bigger, just what we've been discussing. And so I think that it leads to more problems.
So there are some things you can do to be proactive. Number one, you said it wasn't necessarily genetic.
No.
But here's something I found out. A statement was read, and I'm going to quote it for you so I get it right.
Okay.
When I was bone loss isn't a calcium problem, but a chronic inflammation problem.
I would agree with that, and I would add to that it's an acidity problem.
Let's explain that.
So
is this the gut microbiome dysbiosis coming into play?
That's part of it. So think about, one of the things that I like to try to get people to understand is that the studies show that it is not, in America anyway, in U.S. women, it is not a calcium deficiency. So one of the big mistakes that I see is these people will say, well, my doctor told me to take Oscal or Caltrate D or whatever all these products are. And the problem is those products are really poor forms of calcium, number one. They're very hard for the body to absorb. And what some research has shown is that it actually can cause plaque buildup in the arteries and not increase the bone density. So if you're going to use calcium, you need to make sure and use the right product with the right forms of calcium, with the right vitamin D to push it in, vitamin D and vitamin K to push that calcium into the cell, into the bones where they belong, where it belongs. So, yes, I think that there are, what was the question? I'm sorry, I got off on that. So
the mess up, the leaky gut, the chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
In the
That's
gut,
where we were going.
And that was the connection.
Yeah, so I do think that inflammation plays a role in this for sure. And the inflammation, as you just talked about, comes from the gut most of the time. And then we add to that the acidity nature of this. So when you think of the blood, okay, and I mean, this is probably too much detail, but I think it helps people understand where I'm going with this. So let's say that you know, on a pH scale, it's 0 to 14. Right. So it's a logarithmic scale. It's a very small scale. So a tick up or down is a big move because there's only 14 places to go, right? So the blood pH has to stay slightly alkaline, 7.35 to 7.45. So anything above 7 is considered alkaline. Anything below 7 is considered acidic, and 7 is considered neutral. So the body wants to keep the blood slightly alkaline.
Right.
If the blood gets acidic, we will die. Okay, so if it stays there and gets too low, so we need to keep that alkaline balance in the blood. Well, how does the body do that? If we're drinking things like soft drinks that are 2.5 pH, so they're 50,000 times more acidic than our blood should be. So the body has to, quote, buffer that, right? It has to buffer that acidity, or we don't digest food well.
Right.
Now we're getting to the gut part, okay? We don't digest food well because we have a lack of probiotics, we have a lack of enzymes. Now we have this undigested food sitting there causing more and more acid to be produced. Right. So now the body has this higher acid content. It has to keep the blood at 7.35 to 7.45 to keep us alive. And so what happens is, how does the body buffer that acidity? Well, it does it by pulling minerals from the bones and the joints. So that then creates sometimes vitamin and mineral deficiencies in the bones and the joints. And so we can see this calcium deficiency. We can see these magnesium deficiencies. We can see, strontium deficiencies. We have all these deficiencies now in the bones, and so the bones can't grow back. The remodeler doesn't have the right materials to grow that bone back as strong as it was before. So the gut plays that role in that inflammatory process, and the gut plays that role in the acidic or the alkaline acidity balance of the body. And so I think those factors, with the loss for women of hormones, are where we get 1 in 4 women above the age of 50 with going to have a fracture from osteoporosis.
I know that through my research, eliminate or limit alcohol.
Yes.
Caffeine.
Yes.
You mentioned the soda drinks.
Yes.
But what are things we can do without doing medication? There's got to be something good. We're on your foundational 4.
Yes.
The research I did said you have to have a strong probiotic.
Yes.
Well, we've got that.
Right.
We've got your digestive enzyme.
Yes.
It recognized magnesium being very important. And it also talked about elevated vitamin D levels. D with K.
Yes.
And that's what we take.
Yep.
So we're on the right path of making it better for bones, for building for myself also.
Yes. So you named some really good things. I mean, certainly having the multivitamin, so we're getting that baseline of all those vitamins and minerals, the right calcium at the right dose, okay? We're getting the probiotic and the digestive enzyme, which are critical to help the gut work right and try to keep that inflammation and that acid-alkaline balance.
Right.
And then you talked about something that's overlooked completely is the magnesium. So the 5 organic chelated salt magnesium that I formulate, to me, is one of the key parameters in keeping our bones strong, because without magnesium, we can't make energy. We can't build new bone properly. We can't do 350 things, right, that we know magnesium does. Right. Now, the research shows that 80% of Americans are deficient, so it's a big deal. Then you mentioned probably the kind of the go-to, and the reason that I formulated the vitamin D with Super K is because the Rotterdam study showed up to a 50% decrease in arterial plaque and up to a 50% increase in bone density. And that's because having optimal vitamin D with the right vitamin K almost, I mean, for lack of a better term, it pulls the calcium out of the bloodstream and into the bones where it belongs. And then the vitamin K kind of acts like a glue, we'll call it, right? It's called osteocalcin. It acts like a glue to hold everything together in those bones and make them nice and strong. So vitamin D with K, all those supplements you named are awesome. But the number one thing is to exercise, resistance training.
Weights and
resistance. So, yeah, resistance training is the number one thing to build bones. The problem is it's really hard to get people to do that, right? It can be difficult to get people to resistance train. So we're not talking about going out and running. I mean, that's not bad for your bones. Right. Certainly good for your leg bones, your hips, those things. But we're talking more about sending a stimulus of, hey, I need to build new muscle and I need to build new bone to support that. And so that is, to me, the number one thing. Then for women, as they approach menopause, certainly they need to start replacing their hormones.
Talk about that. That was the one thing in the study I noticed on several different, the AI.
Yeah.
And talked about estradiol and testosterone.
Yes.
And the vital role it plays. And that's not part of the protocol.
And I think what they leave out of that is progesterone.
Yeah, okay.
So that's really important too, and we'll talk about why. So, estradiol plays a huge role in the women being able to build and maintain bone. So think about it. When women are younger, and we talked about 30 is kind of where it peaks, our bone density. You know, in your 20s, most women are cycling. They're having their periods monthly, and that means that their estrogen is going up part of the month. Their progesterone is going up the other part of the month. If the egg's not fertilized, they kind of both drop off, and they have the period, right? So estradiol, specifically in that time period, is one of the reasons that they're building that strong bone in their 20s, okay?
Right.
Then when we look at testosterone, when's it going to be highest in their life? Well, in their 20s, right, again. And so testosterone is an anabolic. It's building. Estradiol is building those bones. And progesterone is actually the signaler for the remodeler.
Okay.
So progesterone is actually the hormone that tells the osteoblast, hey, come over here and build new bone in Lydia's left hip. There's old bone there. It needs to go. So it signals these Pac-Man and these rebuilders as to where to go. So it doesn't directly build bone, maybe. So that's maybe why it doesn't get mentioned with estradiol and testosterone. But it's kind of directing it. It's kind of the orchestrator of who goes where and who does what. So think of that as that harmony, that orchestra of those three hormones working together. Yeah, that symphony of the estradiol, the testosterone more in the building phase, and the progesterone more as, hey, go over here and build. Here's our biggest priority first.
One study I read mentioned that not only the estradiol oral, but transdermal, and it mentioned the testosterone transdermal.
Yeah.
So those were the best carriers, best pathways?
Well, testosterone, the best pathway, I think, is always transdermal. But for estradiol, we can get the bone building effects and the heart protection through oral capsules.
Okay.
We can get the bone effects from transdermal, such as a patch or a cream, but we miss what I think is the number one benefit of the estradiol, which is the vascular protection, the heart protection, the vessel protection. So, you know, there's some pretty strong evidence that we only get that from oral estradiol. And they've done comparisons, okay, Lydia, in oral estradiol versus transdermal or a patch estradiol, and they've shown that we don't seem to see the heart benefits.
Well, the nurse practitioner that you sent us to, I'm on both. I'm on oral and a transdermal
and
estradiol.
Certainly nothing wrong with doing it that way. It's just I think the biggest benefits overall are certainly from oral.
Right. And Bill and I are very intentional, especially after my diagnosis and coming to see you a few years ago, about doing weights.
Yes.
Doing the resistance.
Yes.
We walk. We don't walk just on flat land. We try to go up and down hills. And I've even started with a vest, a 12-pound weighted vest, because that's got to be helping with the bones.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question that anything that puts a load, we'll call it, on the body and stimulates the body to say, hey, I need stronger bones, is going to obviously start to build those bones and those muscles. And then if we have the testosterone is one of the major muscle building hormones. If we have that optimized, now your body can start to do all those things, right? So it'll build stronger muscle with that optimized. It'll build stronger bone with that optimized. The brain will work better with that optimized. The muscles will be better. So everything will make you more apt to be healthy longer in life without those fractures and things.
Let's circle back around to the vitamin D. At one point in time, mine was 90-something, maybe close to 100.
Okay.
That was very alarming to some people. But I think people need to understand that when they get their blood lab and their vitamin D level, especially women in postmenopause or menopause or wherever they are when they're in that stage, they need to understand that that vitamin D is very essential. When they say, oh, your level is 35, that's great.
Yeah.
No, it's not. So how do we help people understand that that vitamin D is just as important, and that low level, that's the standard, the normal blood lab, which we know what that is.
Yeah.
It's so hard to, well, my doctor said,
well,
is what I hear.
Yeah. So, Lydia, that's most labs used to say 22 to 100 nanograms per deciliter was normal vitamin D level. Now they've at least upped it to 30. And I tell people all the time, that's really just enough to prevent rickets, the bone disease.
Okay.
So that ought to be the first clue how important vitamin D is for bones.
Right.
Is if it's too low when you're younger, you'll have rickets. Okay. You can develop rickets. So when they say 30 to 100, I tell people, well, they're just giving you a level to prevent rickets. They're not giving you a level for optimal health.
Right.
Like we've talked about on all these blood levels, I don't think any of them are designed for optimal health. I think they're designed for the average person who is typically not healthy, right?
Right.
So what I teach, and you know this, is that we need to keep our vitamin D at a minimum of 60 nanograms per deciliter, and we prefer 80 to 100. Now, here's to be the argument, okay? If you have your vitamin D too high, you can pull calcium, it can imbalance the calcium. But what happens is when you have it formulated the way that I do with the right vitamin K, MK27, you actually protect yourself even at much higher levels than 100 from that calcium imbalance that it could cause.
Right.
So I have had particularly a heart doctor, Dr. Steven Sinatra. Now, he's since passed away, but very, very smart cardiologist who says that he believes people's levels should be 120 on vitamin D. Now, I don't recommend that because I'm very comfortable between 80 and 100, and I feel pretty good about people who are above 60, but I like 80 to 100, and that's where we try to, get people to get their levels to. So not only that, Lydia, but when you talk about inflammation being a factor in this, well, low vitamin D can create more inflammation or more readily associated with inflammation. And low vitamin D is definitely going to affect our immune system tremendously. So if we want to avoid the colds, the flus, the COVIDs, the whatever, we need to have optimal vitamin D levels. So it plays such a critical role in so many places.
It does. You put me on one of your supplements when we met with you, and you looked at my DEXA scan, and you said you need Bone Mineral Pro.
Yeah.
And it's divided up into a morning dose and an evening dose.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lydia, and it's a very important question as to why. So let's start with what Bone Mineral Pro is. So it is a formula that is put together, that I put together specifically to build bone. So nothing else.
It's not just calcium.
No. So number one, if you have a bone mineral density test, not a bone density test, but a bone mineral density test before you start Bone Mineral Pro, and that's really as we've talked about, the gold standard for measuring your bone strength. You have that bone mineral density test before you start Bone Mineral Pro, and then 3 months after, I guarantee you that will be improved. If it's not improved, I give you all your money back. It's never failed ever in all these decades, okay?
Right.
Because we know that it's impossible for it to fail if the person's taking it. Now, why is it a morning pack and an evening pack in a big container, right? And it's a lot of I don't remember how many exactly.
There's 6 in the morning and 5 in the evening.
Okay. All right. I knew it was a lot of different things in there, a lot of different capsules.
Right.
So the reason that it is split is, again, because of the science. So this goes to a professionally formulated supplement versus taking Oscal, right, or Citrical D or whatever. So the studies show that the right forms of calcium with the right other components like magnesium and all these other things that are in there, right? Selenium, zinc, these things. The reason that we want it in 2 packs is because calcium works along a certain amount of pathways to build new bone, help the body build, help that remodeler work.
Right.
Then there's another thing that we have in the other pack, and I can't remember which one's morning, which one's evening right now.
One says AM, one says
PM.
PM.
Right. It's been a long time since I formulated that. But it's strontium.
Okay.
And strontium works along some of those same pathways as calcium to, guess what? Build new strong bone. So what happens is if you take, and a lot of products will do this, if you take, most don't have strontium, they don't even know what it is. Right. But if you take calcium and strontium at the same time, they compete for that same pathway. And so now you don't get the full benefit of both. But when you split them, AM and PM, you get the full benefit of one when it's there, and then you do the other one and you get the full benefit of it because the other one's already kind of moved out of the way. And so, yeah, it's not just calcium. It's not even a big dose of calcium. It's about putting the right calcium that the body can easily absorb with all the other minerals and things that it needs, and then putting the strontium with all the other minerals and things that it needs and letting them do their thing. And that's why it works 100% of the time, because it's almost impossible. It really is impossible biologically for it not to work. And so it's just a product that is, again, carefully thought out, carefully put together, and done in a way that we know we're going to have success.
I space mine out, basically 12 hours between the morning dose and the evening
and
dose.
somewhere between 8 and 12 hours is perfect. Yeah.
When I went and had my first DEXA scan done, it was in 21.
Yeah.
And she did a follow-up in 24.
Okay.
And when I asked about it again, she said, we'll do it in 27.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be really interested because we've been very intentional about the weights, the diet, the exercise, all the things we've talked about. So I did a little experiment. Because I would wake up during the night, and my left hip is the worst.
Okay.
And it would be hurting before we started any of our protocols. And I would have to sleep on pillows or move and get adjusted, and I would have aches down my leg. Well, it's got to be coming from my hip. So started the Bone Mineral Pro, didn't have that ache.
Yeah.
So 2 years in, I'm like, okay, let's see if this stuff really is that important.
Right.
So I went off for a month. The worst mistake I made.
Yeah.
Because within that time frame of about a month, I had back laying on that hip with a pillow, with ice, because it was hurting. So I'm going to be really interested in 27 when I have my DEXA scan done to see the difference.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Lydia, I tell people, again, the DEXA scan may change some, but we're not trying to build bigger bone.
No.
And just remember, that's what it's measuring. So I wouldn't be overly optimistic about it being tremendously changed.
So what do I need to request? Because it's the DEXA, DEXA scan.
Yeah.
That's not the right test.
Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't have that test, but I think the most important test is the bone mineral density test.
Okay.
And so that is a test, a urine test, okay? So you take the second morning void and put it in a jug and send it to them. So what that does is it measures how many minerals you're spitting out in your urine.
Right.
Okay? The more minerals we're spitting out in the urine, the worse, right? That means they're not in the bones anymore. So that test is directly correlated with the strength of the bone, and again, not the size of the bone. So that's where this product like Bone Mineral Pro, for those who have more advanced or osteopenia or osteoporosis, just want to never have it. That is a product designed specifically to make sure that those minerals stay in the bones.
So I will need to request a urinalysis for the bone density.
Yeah, ask for the bone mineral density test. They call it, God, I didn't know what we were talking about. I could have looked. I can't remember what LabCorp calls that test, but I'll figure it out. I'll tell you what, let me just grab my phone and look now. Because I don't want to leave that like that. LabCorp. Let's see if I can find it, Lydia. Go ahead and ask me another question.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a
Or
little
keep
story.
going. Yeah, or tell me.
I did the one round of reclassed and didn't realize that was a big mistake. And I know once it's in your body, it's in your body. It's got a afterlife of probably forever.
The half-life is crazy. Yes, it is.
So everything I'm doing is fighting against that. But it was interesting that I got a letter from my insurance provider stating that they had looked at my medical records, noticed that I had osteoporosis. They had the data of my scores and recommended strongly that I consult my provider and set up a treatment plan. That came from my insurance company.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer that. Let me tell you what the test is called at LabCorp. It's called an NTX test.
NTX.
Yeah, I knew there was something other than bone mineral density they called it, but that's what it's measuring. So
NTX.
I'm going to tell you why I think you got that from your insurance company, Lydia. And it's sad, but it's part of the broken system that I talk about so much. I think that your insurance company gets a kickback from the reclass folks or whoever is making whatever drug that particular insurance is pushing. And so they're going to get a check every time, or probably not literally a check anymore, but an electronic payment. I better be careful of the language because I'm not sure I'm supposed to, but a kickback is what I call it for you being on that drug. And that's why insurance companies have formularies. So your insurance company's not dumb. They send you that letter and they want you to go to the doctor and they want the doctor to prescribe X drug for your bones. They have on their list that we will pay for. Yours obviously should have been reclassed, it sounds like. So let's say your doctor wrote for something else for that. Well, they would reject it. They would send a message back to the pharmacist, and say, yeah, this is not covered. We're going to need a prior authorization. Consider switching to, and it'll list then reclass. So then the pharmacist has to go to the trouble of calling the doctor. The doctor has to go to the trouble to getting a message and go, oh, yeah, just switch her to reclass. He or she is going to do that rather than try to fight them and send in a prior authorization and then have them reject it and then send in another prior authorization. It's a game. It's a sad game, Lydia, to me, because we're playing with people's health and wellness and we're doing it at the expense of them to try to profit more.
Well, I just figured it was because I had it done in 24. I did not do it in 25, and I did not do it in 26.
Yeah.
So I figured there's tracking it.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes you wonder, and this is just me wondering, if they're aware of it and something does happen down the road with a hip or my back or a leg, does that give them leeway to deny a claim because I have not followed?
Lydia,
that's just me asking.
Look, they're going to, in my experience, let me say it this way with folks, they're going to try to deny anything they can.
That's true.
I think that's just part of the system as it is today. They're going to make you work. They're going to make your healthcare provider work to get things approved. So maybe, I don't know. That could certainly play into this. I do know this, and I know why this is so important. 20 to 30% of older women that break a bone will die within 12 months. So this is a real problem, okay? I mean, the complications from surgeries and blood thinners and, just all the things that happen, they don't die directly from the bone breaking.
No,
but they die from the results of the bone breaking. And so, one of the things that's really been shown in the studies and is really, I think, important to point out is a lot of people, you'll hear them say a lot, oh, she fell and broke her hip. Well, actually, the studies show that's not true. These bones are so weak that her hip broke and she fell. It goes in the opposite direction. So it doesn't even, if we don't do the things that you and I are discussing today, it's not even that you fall and break your hip. It's probably that your hip breaks and you fall. So there's a big difference in that. That just shows you how fragile and how, frail these people have become and their bones have become. And so I tell everybody, you can build up to 5% new bone every year, stronger bone every year. The studies are clear. And the reason that I have the Bone Mineral Pro is the products that I put in that AM and PM pack are shown to build 5% new bone a year. So your bone density may improve, but what I know has improved is your bone mineral density. So the strength of those bones. Right. You have more of those very resilient bones. Like, think of a younger person when they can bounce around and they fall and you go, oh, that might have broken something.
Not for them.
And they just kind of jump up. Their bones are like those pine trees. They can kind of be blown over and pop right back. And so I hope that that's, where your bones have become. They may not be necessarily bigger, but they become more pliable like that.
And we don't think we take care of our heart. We take care of our skin. Yeah. We don't think about bones being living organisms in our body that have to have attention.
We don't think about them being replaced every 7 years. And and I tell people all the time, the decisions that you make today will depend on what you look like 7 years from now, right? So all the cells in the body are being replaced. We know that the bones turn over about every 7 years. So we can build new bone at any age. I have had people in their 80s who have increased their bone mineral density or made their bone mineral density much better, okay? We've done it with people that would say, oh, they're too old to build new bone. That's not true. No. The body is doing it all the time. It's just, do you give it the parts and the pieces that it needs to build that strong bone? Now, I know Mike said we're out of time, but I got one thing I think that we hadn't covered that is so important today.
What's that?
One of the leading things for this osteopenia and osteoporosis is the PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, okay? I think this is really important, especially with Bill's history, right? And he talked about it when he was here a couple weeks ago about how he was on what was it, Prilosec, omeprazole for, 25 years, is that right?
I was on it for 10.
Okay.
He was on it for 25, right.
So you're never supposed to be on those drugs more than 12 months. That's what studies say. Okay.
12 weeks.
12 weeks, excuse me. Yes, thank you. Not even 12 months, 12 weeks. And that is because, or one of the reasons, is because these drugs, these proton pump inhibitors for reflux or heartburn, what they are doing is they're making it almost impossible for your body to absorb these minerals. So they start to deplete your calcium, your magnesium, your vitamin D. I mean, all these things start to go down in their levels from these proton pump inhibitors. So for a drug that you're never supposed to be on more than 12 weeks, somebody who's been on it 10 years or 25 years, I see it all the time, okay? But that is the reason that we've seen, they say that they believe they can put together that that's the reason for the uptick in men with osteoporosis.
Makes sense.
Is that they have more proton pump inhibitors today than they've ever had. And so we're starting to see men's osteoporosis numbers climb along with women's. So it's really important for people to be aware that these drugs have consequences. And the really sad part with the proton pump inhibitors, as Bill discovered after 25 years, is that you really never need them. Now, I'm not your doctor. I'm not telling you not to do what the doctor said, but you need like the OptiU probiotics and digestive enzymes, and it'll only fix it, 99% of the time. Well, now, for somebody like Bill, who was on it so long, it might take a little bit longer, but for most people, it's 2 or 3 days, and they never need the proton pump inhibitor again.
It took us a while.
Because we're giving them the highest quality probiotic and prebiotic combination and the highest quality digestive enzyme, complete digestive enzyme. So it's really sad when you see, I don't know how many millions of people, I'd have to look it up, but you can look up how many tens, if not hundreds of millions of people are on these proton pump inhibitors, and it's really doing damage. I mean, it's way more damage than just the bones that we're talking about today. But it is one of the reasons for so much osteoporosis and osteopenia, I do believe, at this point.
And with the osteoporosis, for any woman out there, be intentional, be preventative.
Yes.
Get your vitamins, your minerals, your magnesium, the Bone Mineral Pro. Be proactive. Yeah. Be your CEO.
Yeah, I would say, you're dead on, Lydia. And you ask in the beginning, is it genetic? And they say, well, my mama had it. Well, actually what we've learned, and this is well documented, almost all things are not genetic today.
Right.
Not everything, but most are not genetic. They are what we call epigenetic.
Right.
So the environment that we put our bodies in and around. So what we put in our bodies, what's around our bodies, what's put on our bodies, turns good genes on or good genes off, or bad genes on and bad genes off. So don't blame your parents or your grandmother and grandparents for your diabetes or your osteoporosis or your breast cancer or whatever, because that's really not the case in almost all the cases.
I believe it.
So you have to do exactly what you just said. That's what I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's what triggered me. You're right. So finish you be proactive, do your thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Be intentional.
Yes.
Understand. And the quote, if you know better, do better.
Right.
And the more you know, the more you can do.
Yeah.
And it just takes, if you're that concerned about your body and not just relying on someone else telling you, let's do this or let's do this.
Yeah.
And do the research. And then you're going to have the benefits.
Absolutely.
I know I am.
So you're saying be the CEO of your own
Exactly
health.
right.
That's what you're saying.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And then knowledge is power.
Right.
And I think rather than just what most people would have done, Lydia, in your situation, is they would have taken the reclass shot when they were told to, and they would have taken it again when they were told to, and they would have a very poor outcome.
Right.
You, on the other hand, may still break a bone at some point, but you have done everything that I know you could do to try to prevent it and make it much less likely.
That's it. So check your bones.
Yep.
Osteoporosis, it can be, I won't say prevented. Can I say prevented? Or
I think you can. If you're proactive early, yes.
Started early enough, you can prevent.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm for it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billy.
All right. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.